Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dandavats everyone, Vaishnava Vishya, Krishna Gaudiya Vaisnava, Gaudiya Vaisnava, So, we just had Gurudev's Vyasapuja on Thursday, and everyone spoke really nicely, and I just thought tonight and tomorrow night I'm just going to present some of the books that myself and my wife have published just on his life and glories, because we publish his lectures and the Siddhanta or Harikatari spoke, but we're just going to concentrate for 2 nights, so we're going to try to on the glorious life and activities of our beloved Gurudev, His Divine Grace, Srila Gour Govinda Swami Maharaja. And I must say that when he first came in 1990, he touched a lot of people. But the Australian ISKCON management tried to stop that. They really tried to stop that. And they banned Gurudev for 2 years because it was such a successful tour. And there's not much you can do about that. But when you commit such an offence to such a personality, you have to suffer. So, in 1990, Gurudev told me to publish his life story, which we've attempted to do. And then in 1994, he told me to print everything he'd ever said, which I never even told anyone. I never said anything to anyone. I just walked out of Guru Maharaj's room, closed the door. I'd just done the correspondence because I was Gurudev's secretary. I closed the door and I didn't tell anybody. I told no one. And I didn't tell anyone until 2011. Because how do you print everything Gurudev ever said? I mean, there's maybe 5,000 lectures. You know, how are you going to print it all? Anyway, Gurudev said to do it. So, and I didn't mention it until 2011 when we did the tvpbooks.com website, and Raghava said, why are you TVP Books and how did it all start? And I told him, Gurudev told me to print everything in 1994. He said, print everything I've ever said. And that's the first time I'd ever told anyone. And he put it on the website. He put a story about it. So, anyway, I'm not going to try and make this about me because I'm nothing. Stool either, wormwood stool, etc. So the first book we ever did was this one. It was called Krishna Lingita Vigraha, always embraced by Krishna. And this is a term quoted by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura, Prabhupada. He quoted this terminology. And he said, where is it? It's in the front of the book. And there's the picture of Gurudev, very serious. It's very serious. And he said, only an empowered personality can distribute the holy name of the Lord and enjoin all fallen souls to worship Krishna. And as I said on Thursday, Gurudev was the Gupta Acharya, right? He was the hidden Acharya because he was hidden in Orissa. Prabhupada had sent him to Orissa in the middle of nowhere. Right? There was nothing there. Any devotee that went there when A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada went to Bhubaneswar said it didn't matter where you stood on the property and looked, there was nothing. There was just nothing. And the village of Nayapalli was very small. It wasn't like it is now. So, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada sent Gour Govinda Swami to Orissa, to the outskirts of Bhubaneswar, across from the Nayapalli village in the middle of nowhere. And our Gurudev, Srila Gour Govinda Swami, he didn't join at a temple, he joined at a construction site in Raman Reddy. There was no temple. The kirtan was on the sand. Mangalati was in a shed. like a lean-to, you know. There was a hut a bit up the back, and they had their Prabhupada stood there, Guru Maharaj was there, you know, whatever devotees were on the property, they were there. That's where they had it. There was no temple. And then from joining at a construction site, Prabhupada sent him to the wilderness, to the isolated, not forest, jungle of Orissa. Prabhupada sent him to the isolated jungle of Orissa in the middle of nowhere. And when I did that interview with Bhupati said to me, up until 78, 79, in that area, there were still tigers, bears, and elephants roaming wild. And he said to me, who would come here? And then he said, who would want to? You know, and Gurudeva stuck it out there. So this book is not just about that. And Gurudeva may have built that guest house and that temple, and he's glorious for that, but he's not just glorious for that. He's glorious because, and as I explained on Thursday, in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, he was the only one that could present the Prem Tattva, right, the Priti Dharma of Mahaprabhu, and distribute it all over the planet. He was the only one, right? He was the only one amongst his god brothers. No offence. And the more he began to travel, the more problems came. Because, why did the problems come? Because people were falling at the feet of Gour Govinda Swami. Oh, you're my disciple and you're falling at his feet. That's not very good. I want to talk to you. Rather than, you know, he's an advanced sadhu. It's very good you get his association. Isn't it? So everywhere Gurudeva went, I witnessed it myself. They were just falling at his feet. So this was the first book we published, Krishna Lingita Vigraha, always embraced by Krishna. And it was very well received, except for a small group of envious demons. They didn't like it, but what can I say? I even had an email from the temple of Srila Bhakti Ballabh Tirtha Maharaj, from one of their senior men, and he said, I have read your book, Krishna Lingita Vigraha. I am very inspired. I didn't get that from one ISKCON leader. In fact, one ISKCON leader said, oh, he says in here that Gour Govinda Swami, his Bhaktivinoda Thakur will come again. That doesn't fit in with our ISKCON Guru Varga. That doesn't fit in. Why is he saying that? When I heard that, I thought, well, okay, I mean, Hare Krishna, what am I going to say? I'll rip it out of the book, you know. I'll get all the copies that people have bought and I'll whiting that bit out. I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? That's what the astrologer said. When I did the interviews, one astrologer said his Bhaktivinoda Thakur will come again. The other one said his Brihaspati, the spiritual master of the demigods. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was born on the 2nd of September 1838. And Gurudeva was born on the 2nd of September 1929, 91 years later. Same day, same month. Couldn't be the same year. Otherwise we'd have problems.
About the same time.
I've lost my train of thought.
So the devotee objected.
If you speak, I can't talk, sorry. Sorry, folks. I'm not very good at this, so it sort of throws me. So Gurudeva was born on the 2nd of September 1929. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was born on the 2nd of September 1838, 19 years before. And Gurudeva was born 1 week after Janmashtami and 1 week before Radhashtami, right in the middle. Many say protected by Krishna on one side and Radharani on the other. So this book, this was the first book we published, and it was very well received, except, as I said, for a small group of envious people that tried to stop it. But you're always going to get that, because Guru Maharaj personally told me, he said two things. He said, when he finished a volume of the Bhagavatam, and they printed it at the Sri Guru Gauranga Press, right in Orissa, he said there were big pundits in Orissa just waiting to get the book, to read it. But he said they weren't trying to read it to get anything out of it. They were just reading it to find faults. And then they could say, look at this, look at that, look at that. So Guru said, what's the use of that? But that's what they were doing. And then he said, my own brothers and sisters are attacking me as well. So if people criticise this book, what can I do? It's everywhere, right? So that was the first book we ever did on Gurudev's life. Then the next book we did, which was a book we were never going to publish, became this one, Encountering. And this is really, it's a book on how I met Gurudev and Gurudev's glories. And what different godbrothers said and what people said about him. And how glorious he is. And what happened when he actually first walked onto the property of the Krishna Balaram temple, or the Krishna Balaram Raman Reddy land in Vrindavan. And I got a lot of good reaction to this, but again there was a small group of people that tried to stop this book. And there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. So this is called Encountering. And this is Encountering Gurudev. So then in Vrindavan in 2011, we just released Vedic Dharma 1, and we released the website. Raghuva Pandit did the website, tvbooks.com, which was pretty popular then. And I was sitting with some godbrothers and goddesses, and I said, we're not getting the message of Gurudev out enough. We have to, get it out more. So I said, what about a small booklet? And we, colour, gloss, and we distribute it for free all over, everywhere. Especially Vrindavan and Mayapur. So we came up with this book. Gour Govinda Swami. Who was he? Now some complain, they said, oh, you haven't got His Holiness or any title. Well, the title I use for Gurudev is His Divine Grace, Srila Acarya Gaura-Govinda Swami. Oh, you can't use Srila, you can't use Acarya Gaura-Govinda, His Divine Grace. No, you can't use any of that. So I wrote a book with no title. And then the same people said, oh, you haven't got a title. So the point of this book was, for those persons who were caught up in the His Divine Grace, Srila and Acharya delirium, here's a book for them about Gurudev that hasn't got a title, right? And it's full colour gloss. It's got the Bhubaneswara temple there. It's got the famous Gaudagiri temple at the back, and it's got a basic introduction to Gurudev's life and some of the Siddhanta he spoke. Right? It's got Nam Tattva, Jiva Tattva, Bhagavat Tattva, Guru Tattva. It's got Gora Tattva, different things Gurudev spoke, very nice. Prem Tattva, nice picture by Vrindavan Das, right? The artist, Radha and Krishna, very nice. So we printed 5,000 of these in Delhi. They went straight to Vrindavan, and at Gurudev's Vyasapuja, I think we distributed 3,000 all over Vrindavan. Then a whole lot went to Mayapur, and everyone got this book. So this was the encapsulated glories of Gurudev with no title. So if you're worried about Srila or Acarya or His Divine Grace, it wasn't there for you. You could get a book that didn't have that. But by the time you got to the end, there was His Divine Grace, Srila and Acarya. Right? So it was like a build-up. So that book, and that was very successful. I got a lot of emails and a lot of letters and a lot of everything about that book. And there's not much, I call them the anti-party, could say about it. They just couldn't say anything. In fact, in Vrindavan, people were saying, "You're giving this for free." We were like, "Yeah, we're giving this for free." We go, wow. They were pretty impressed. The whole point of all these books is to show how Gurudev is Mahabhagavat, not a conditioned soul, not a Kanishta, not a Madhyam, not on bars even. Premi Bhakta has come here to deliver one and all, bas. Then, after that book, we printed Just Try to Learn the Truth, which was actually that book with a different cover. And everyone liked it. Changed the cover, we redid it a bit inside, not much, a little bit. And they like, again, just all Gurudev's glories, how glorious he is, how wonderful he is, how effulgent he was, how magnanimous he was, how you missed out because you didn't meet him. No offence. Right? Then, in this book, and in the life story, there are two sections. The one where Guru Maharaj meets A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and he takes sannyas. Vrindavan 1975, yeah? And then later in the book is where Gurudev goes into Samadhi, the Mayapur 1979 event. So we took those two booklets out of the life story and out of this book, and we did this one first, Mayapur 1979. No, sorry. We did this one, Vrindavan 1975, how Gurudev met Prabhupada and how he came to take sannyas. When he took sannyas, a lot of senior GBCs and sannyasis and leaders who aren't around anymore but were there then, complained that he's a new man. Why is he taking sannyas? He's a new man. Prabhupada had to turn around to them and say, he's a devotee from his birth. You are all new men. He was not in a hippie commune. He was not smoking dope. He did not have girlfriends. He was not going to the discotheque. He did not live in an apartment, and when he closed the door, the roof caved in and all the cockroaches came out. He didn't live like that. He was a paka sadhu from day one in his life. So he's a devotee from his birth. You are all new men. And that was Vrindavan 1975, and we printed 10,000 copies of this. And that got distributed for free all over Mayapur and Vrindavan. Mainly Mayapur. There's a lot of devotees in Mayapur. I think there's 6,000 living there or something, just in the ISKCON Mayapur compound, so 10,000 was nothing. So that was that one. Then we did Mayapur 79. Mayapur 79 is the event that could have changed the history of ISKCON, but they covered it over, covered it up, pretended it never existed. It could have changed the whole history of ISKCON. We have here one disciple of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada whose body was going white and then dark colour, and then white and then dark, and then changing colour. There's a few naysayers, oh, this could happen. I don't accept them. I don't accept. People, you always get the envious people that try to block you, but that's not much you can do about that. he exhibited symptoms if you read this book, or any of these books, he exhibited symptoms no one in ISKCON has exhibited. Not one of his godbrothers, not one of his godsisters, not one of his anyone. And those symptoms were enough to prove he's Mahābhagavat. Mahābhagavat means you can sit on the Vyasa, be worshipped like Hari, and make disciples all over planet Earth. Isn't it? Yes. And they're the words of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, they're not my words. So Guru Maharaj, at one point they thought he'd left his body. So they didn't know what to do. So they somehow or other, Krishnadas Babaji, Srila Akinchana, Niskinchana, Krishnadas Babaji appeared on the scene. The godbrother of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the great disciple of his Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Maharaj. And what did Krishnadas Babaji say about our Gurudev? Actually, what did they say about Krishnadas Babaji? Niskinchana Paramahamsa. So when he saw Gurudev, he looked at him, he took a thread from his cloth, put it under Gurudev's nose, and it moved a bit, and he looked, he smiled, and he said, "It's okay. Bhav, prema, prema." These are ecstatic symptoms, it's got nothing to do with material illness. Because every doctor they brought had said, there's nothing wrong with him. And Lagudi said to me, he looks like he's left his body, you know. Devotees are thinking, it looks like he's left his body, and the doctor's saying there's nothing wrong with him. Right? And there was no material malady, no material symptoms, no material illness. And then Krishnadas Babaji comes and says, this is Bhav, this is Prem. Then he said, he's in Krishna Leela. And then he said, he said he's Mahābhagavat, paid Dandavats and left. This event should have been enough to change the course of ISKCON's history, but it didn't. Because after the disappearance of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, we had another, in that branch of Mahaprabhu's mission, ISKCON, another Mahābhagavat, Paramahamsa. Right? And what did they say? Keep him locked up. Don't tell anyone. Keep him locked up. So then, this was the version of Krishnadas Babaji. Then they went to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and he said, "This is very high Bhav, very high Bhav. He is okay, he is okay. You Westerners, you cannot understand, you cannot understand. This is very high Bhav." Bhav means simply mood. It's very high mood. The mood of Paramahamsa, you can't understand. Conditioned soul cannot understand.